Hey everybody, we are here live and today it is Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ask the Therapist Live, where you have an opportunity to ask any question that you may have for a therapist. Whether it is about life, relationships, perhaps it's marriage, whatever your question may be, tonight is your night where you get to ask. You get to ask a therapist, an expert, a C-suite expert, your questions. So what do we've got going on? I have some special treats for you tonight. I am using the Live Interact poll that we used before. Last time we only asked a couple questions because that's all I could kind of figure out. This time tonight, I have several questions that I'm going to ask. So while you're here, they are anonymous. Your answers are all anonymous. But once everybody gets in and we start to get settled in, then we are going to let the polls fly. You know, in honor of voting today, we are going to have our own voting. We are going to have our own polls so I can learn more about you. They will be fun, they'll be basic. Some of them might be a little bit more difficult, but regardless, your answers are all anonymous and no one knows who voted for what, which is perfect, right? So I could feel the tension in the air today. How about you? Very torn between tension and excitement as people were headed to the polls, you know, as we were watching on Facebook, as well as within our community, there was many people reporting that we were seeing record numbers of people headed to the polls today. That is so exciting to me. To hear that there are people out voting is awesome, right? Hey, Nathaniel, it is great to see you. Nathaniel, thank you so much for the connection that you made on Facebook today. I've not heard anything yet, but I just wanted to give you a shout out, Nathaniel. Nathaniel saw on the Facebook page of someone else's that they were in need of an expert in suicide prevention and awareness, and he pointed them into my direction. So I really appreciate that, Nathaniel. I appreciate you thinking about me and my level of expertise around suicide prevention and awareness. I am here to serve. So thank you so much. Hey, Paula, it is great to see you. Yes, they are going to be fun. The polls are going to be fun. You know, in honor of, Poll Tuesday, where we all went out and voted, we're going to do our own polls here. Hey, Mom, how are you? It's great to see you online. Thank you so much for always supporting me. Hey, Suzanne, it's great to see you as well. I love your little smiley face. Suzanne has had so much going on in her world. I'll tell you what, this woman is just majorly popping out books left and right. Suzanne, you have published multiple books over the last year, and we are so proud of you. That is awesome. Hey, Jody, it's great to see you. My sweet girl, mwah, great to see you. I'm so glad you're here and joining us live for Ask the Therapist. As always, you have an opportunity to ask your questions. So as we get started and people are jumping on, I wanted to share with you that it was a really cool experience today. I was able to be interviewed by Dave Malarkey. He is the WBUT, whatever you call him. I just lost my words. He's not a disc jockey. What the heck is he? Anyways, he interviewed me for the radio station WBUT, which is actually an AM station here in Butler. It is 680 AM. And I was interviewed this morning about iRise Leadership Institute. We also shared our book with him, gave him a copy of the book so that he could read it for himself. We talked about what iRise is doing in the community and the difference we are making, as well as so many different opportunities that we have coming up for volunteers. We are definitely going to be recruiting volunteers in the near future. We've got a lot of projects going on, but being interviewed by Dave Malarkey was such a blessing. So a shout out to the Butler Radio Network having me on as we talked about radio personality. Thank you, Paula. As we talked about iRise and we talked about the suicide epidemic, not only here in Butler County, but nationwide. We talked about statistics as well as ways that you can help and support your friends and family if you know someone who's going through suicide, as well as if you're struggling. And I loved giving him a book. So you can check out the photos on Facebook. Just go to Christy Knights. I also plan to share them on the iRise page. So if you're not part of iRise page, make sure you go over there and click to follow iRise, we are doing so many different things. So that was a really cool opportunity that we had. So we thank you very much, Dave Malarkey, and a shout out to my husband for that connection. My husband actually, Tom Knights, the manager of Butler Township, was on one of Dave's shows, and he said, "You've got to interview my wife." So it's nice to have a connection. Thank you, Tom Knights, as well for that connection. So how are we doing today? Let's do our first poll. All right. So I'm going to publish this first poll. And remember, it is all anonymous. Everything is anonymous. So we're just going to have some fun tonight as you vote, and we get to see people just clicking and getting to know each other. What is our audience like? You know, who are we as a tribe, right? Thank you, Paula, very much. One of the big questions was, where do we purchase the book Unsung Heroes, Deconstructing Suicide Through Stories of Triumph? We're able to purchase that book at iRise Leadership. Paula just put up the link, as well as christyknights.com. You can purchase it there too. And all proceeds go back into suicide prevention and awareness. Very cool. Now, just so you know, that book is a compilation of 35 stories of people who have attempted suicide and are now living a life of joy. They have come through at a very dark time in their life. They were very brave and courageous to share that with each of us in a story. And then it's a story of inspiration, right? A story of inspiration that after their attempt or near attempt, they're now living a life of joy. 35 authors. I'm one of the authors where I share my story as well about a dark, dark time in my life where I came close to completing suicide. Thank God I did not. I am just thankful to Jesus for pulling me through that and having the opportunity to publish this book and get our stories out. So it's an incredible book, an incredible cause. So if you would like to purchase that, now you see where you can on Christy Knights, as well as iRise Leadership. Suzanne is one of the authors as well. Paula is here. She's an author. Her daughter is an author. Many people in the community that you may know are authors of this book, are co-authors. So you must check it out. Look at that. When we look at our poll, did you vote today? We've got 100% at yes. That's great. Congratulations to everybody who voted. That is wonderful. I waited for my husband to come home, and then he and I went to the polls and voted together. It was kind of cool when we scrolled through Facebook to see like everybody. I voted, I voted, I voted. I have to say it's the first time I've seen so many, at least in my newsfeed, that voted, right? Very cool. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where things go. I'm sure many of us are apprehensive, but I think that there's excitement as well with all of it. So we're going to leave that "Did you vote today" up there for a while and let more people sign in and more people weigh in if you voted today. And like I said, I've got probably about 5 more questions that I'm going to ask. So a lot of fun, a lot of fun. So as always, it's Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you have an opportunity to be the rock star and ask your question, whatever it may be about life, career, marriage, family, children, parenting, whatever it may be. You ask the question and I will answer it. So do you have any questions for me? Let me check out social media and see if there's anything gigging there, right? I've got one. Okay. Let's see. So this one just came through in my text message. I love when that happens. A question for Ask the Therapist Live. My wife and I are expecting our second child in July. While we are so excited, we are both very sad that our time with our baby girl alone is coming to an end. We always wanted 2 to 3 children, but we are just sad that our alone time with her is coming to an end. Is this normal to feel that way? And will we be able to open our hearts and love our second as much as we love our first? That's such a great question. Such a great question. So this particular person, they are pregnant with their second child, and he is asking, like, yes, we are excited, but we're also sad that the time alone with our first child is coming to an end. And he's asking a very common question new parents ask with a second child: will I have the ability to love this second child as much as you love your first child? So absolutely, you will. And you're right, it's a time of excitement, it's a time of apprehension, but let me tell you, you will absolutely love your second child equally to your first child. They are created differently, their personalities are going to be different, but at the same time, you will fall in love equally with this second child. And yes, of course, it is absolutely normal for you to feel a level of sadness that the time alone with your first child is coming to an end. That's been a very special time, a very special time between you and your first child that you will never have again, nor will any other children subsequently experience that time alone with you. So that was such a sacred time. And there is a level of normal grieving, to say, for that life transition. There's going to be an adjustment period as well. So no worries at all. It's absolutely normal to feel that way. And without a doubt, you will absolutely love the second child equally. And it will be equally as exciting and fun. It's just an incredible experience. So congratulations for the second child. And I have no doubt you will make an amazing dad, amazing mom, and you're going to love this time in your life. So thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate it. So another question I have, with the holidays coming up, how do you handle the conflicts that will arise? That's a really good question. I think that when you look at family dynamics in holidays, they can be rather difficult. Some of us absolutely dread the holidays because of the conflict. Others of us just love it and think nothing of it, and it's just part of family time. I know a particular family that I used to work with, and really there was multiple girls in the house. So when they came together, it was 30 plus people for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. It was always fighting, and they knew it was going to happen, but they just embraced it. They just embraced it, and it was part of what they did. It was tradition. They expected it. But when conflict is a problem for you, there's multiple ways you can handle it. One, let's stay away from specific topics that cause anxiety and stress in families normally, right? So one of those very common topics, which is a rule we have in our home for holidays, is no politics. We don't talk politics on the holidays, because we know in our family that can be difficult to discuss because we don't all agree. And there's not an expectation to agree, but unfortunately, sometimes when people become very emotionally charged with a topic like politics, you lose your cool and you're not near as logical, and you tend to say things that you regret. So managing conflict at holidays may be starting with some boundaries, taking off those hot topics off the table so they're not part of conversation. The next area of conflict within holidays is oftentimes alcohol. Alcohol can cause all kinds of issues in families. Whenever we choose to become intoxicated at the holidays, then there tends to be a higher level of conflict, a higher level of disagreement, a higher level of just blah, because people are not present and they're not there and they're affected by alcohol and being under the influence. There is a statistic where 72% of people drink higher levels of alcohol in the holidays, right? So may not be terribly surprising, but that's also a problem. Third, in order to handle conflict in the holidays, it's about wrapping your head around it, remembering that regardless of who you are, you're not responsible for the conflict unless you're starting it, right? It's not your issue. If two people are in conflict, you can kindly ask them to knock it off, or you can step back and remember you're not responsible for it. We oftentimes, especially women, take on the emotions of other people, feeling responsible for how they're acting. In this case, when there's conflict and it's not your responsibility, you just step back. So there's not the level of emotion. Now, let's say your family tends to be rather volatile or perhaps violent whenever there's conflict, that the conflict is so intense that it could become violent or nasty. It's time to rethink your guest list. Who can be there and who can't be there? Perhaps it's not inviting certain people that just can't truly be respectful. And if you can't be respectful of one another, then perhaps you need to eat alone. Like, don't do it, right? So there are some ways to manage the conflict, starting with some boundaries, taking the hot topics off the table, being able to give yourself some emotional distance, reminding yourself you're not responsible. And then if it becomes a problem, then you trim down that guest list and you don't invite the people who are high conflict people. I hope that was helpful for you. All right, so we are doing good. Everybody's voted today, so we haven't had anybody that did not vote. That's great. So as you're jumping on, the poll is right here. I think everybody can see it even though you're jumping on now, right? Because it says it's active, which is really cool. Oh, you can't see the results. That's right. I totally forgot. Okay, I just spoiled it. My goodness. So anybody else need to vote in terms of did you vote today? And then I'll publish the results, which I just told you. Oh my goodness. All right. So there we go. I published the results. Did you vote today? It's now considered closed. 100%. Everybody voted. How cool is that? Very cool. I'm very proud of this tribe. You guys care about our country. You care about our communities. And you are out there rocking the boat and you're having a voice. How difficult it is for you at times in your life to have a voice, whether we're talking political or perhaps we're talking within our family, among our friends, at work. Are there times where you feel you don't have a voice? Are there times it feels like your voice is taken from you? Just this week, I was working with a few clients who feel like they don't have a voice in their marriage. And working with them, one is male, one is female, and how to develop a voice in their relationships, how to do that. The first step is to build confidence. If there is a place you feel like you don't have a voice, I want you to increase your confidence in yourself, knowing who you are, what you bring to the table of life, and how to articulate that. So feeling good, remembering what are your strengths? What are the qualities about you that are unique, right? We are building confidence. As we build our confidence and we increase our self-awareness, our self-esteem increases, and then we're more inclined to have a voice. If the other party on the other side is taking our voice, then learning to set boundaries again, being able to discontinue the conversation if they're not permitting a voice for you. So for example, if it is a boss versus an employee, that tends to be the trickiest relationship, is if your boss doesn't give you a voice, being able to have a private meeting and express that, being able to set boundaries by not working excessive amount of times, overly late, that finding that balance so that you're not constantly being taken advantage of. People who are taken advantage of tend to lose their voice. They tend to not feel as good about themselves and they just give, and then people take advantage and not allow them to have a voice. The other option is look for another job. Not always easy, but in a relationship with an employer, it's important that you do have a respectful voice, that you are understood. In a relationship, it's very much the same. In a marriage, if you feel like you don't have a voice, couples counseling is key, but if your other partner is not willing to come to counseling, then it's time for you to get your butt into therapy and really work through some of your own emotional issues, gaining that confidence so that you can articulate. And Jody says, I'm finding my true voice. Honesty, open-minded, and willingness. Absolutely. Absolutely. In order to have that voice, cultivate it, you must be true to yourself. What are your core values? Jody, one of your core values is honesty. That's what you're sharing with us. So the ability to be honest with yourself and being honest with others increases your self-awareness and confidence. Being open-minded. How often do we run into people that are closed-minded, that we have a difficult time communicating with. Being open-minded allows us to be willing to hear others' feedback or criticism for us, or to also be able to be honest and open with them and listen to their ideas and ways to grow. Being open-minded also allows for a higher level of self-development and growth, which leads to more confidence. So absolutely, and that willingness is key. Being willing to sit in the pain, being willing to be vulnerable and transparent is key to finding your voice and having that voice. That's what makes leaders, in my opinion, exceptional leaders, a revolutionary leader. When they have the ability to hear someone say to them, whenever you said that it didn't make sense, can you restate it? Or, I noticed that this is a problem in our therapy session. Can you work on that, right? I'll never forget the first time a client called me out and said, look, it doesn't seem like you're connected in our session. I don't feel challenged anymore. What's going on? I appreciated that greatly. It opened up the floodgates of my willingness and open-mindedness to grow. And it's very important that we come to a place of security in ourselves, that when someone offers, criticism or loving criticism in a way that is to help us grow and develop, that we're willing to accept it and hear it without being defensive. You can ask Paula. It's taken me a long time to come to a place where I'm willing to be accountable, where I'm willing to be open-minded and hear when people have feedback for me. But I relish it. I love when someone says, look, you're disconnected in our session, what's going on? Or we've done this exercise multiple times, or I'm hurt you didn't remember this. I like being called out, because my goal is to serve and grow to the best of my ability as God desires. And I can't do that if I don't know what's going wrong, right? So thank you so much for that, Jody. And our second question for today is, would you be interested in transcripts of Ask the Therapist Live? As I mentioned in the past, we have an opportunity to create transcripts of each and every one of these live videos, where you would have the opportunity to click and download the transcript, having all of this information at your fingertips. You would be able to scan through a transcript, see the questions people have asked and the answers. Is that something you would be interested in? So go ahead and vote. Go ahead and vote and let me know. Would you be interested in transcripts of Ask the Therapist Live? Remember, this is in honor of voting at the polls. So be honest, be true. If you don't think you would benefit from a transcript, or you don't think you would use it, then make sure you select no. If you think you would, make sure you select yes. And it is completely anonymous. I can't see who's voting what. But what I do know is 100% of you went to the polls and voted. So there's no reason we can't play along with my poll game, right? So how are we doing? Yes, Paula, what matters now is your willingness to grow. You're absolutely right. I think that willingness to grow is essential in every area of our life, especially in our professions. When we have a desire to grow in our business, we must be willing to listen. We must be willing to grow. But I guess I said especially in business, but let me correct that. For me, it's been especially in my faith in God. For me, what I have found is that when I am willing to grow in my faith, to be obedient to God, and to completely surrender, amazing blessings just appear out of the sky. I don't know, but I'm blessed on a regular basis. Paula, you said you're not seeing the poll. I'm not sure where people are seeing it. On my screen, Paula, it's like the top right corner is where it's at. So it's pretty predominant. I'm not sure why you're not seeing it. Can anybody help her? Tell her where that poll is. I'll take a picture of it. You don't think that'll work, but I want to send it to you. Don't you just love this? Such technology, right? So did anybody watch or listen to my interview for Dave Malarkey today? Did anybody listen to it by chance? Okay, so he actually asked a really hard question. I thought it was really good. Thank you, Nathaniel. If you're on a mobile device, you have to open it with the button by the comment bar. Very good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not able to see the total number of people who voted, but what I am able to see are the results. So I'm not sure. Thank you very much. But he asked a really tough question, and I was perplexed by it when he asked, but I thought it was a really good question. You know, we were talking about suicide and prevention and awareness with iRise, and he asked me, in what way did I feel that religion has caused more problems or taken away from suicide prevention and awareness? So in what ways has religion actually been a problem? You know, how they've stood in the way. He didn't exactly put it that way. And at first I was kind of confused, but then, you know, I sat there and thought, okay, how has religion gotten in the way, or has religion made it worse for suicide prevention and awareness? You know, and as I was thinking about it, I actually became really candid, because I stumbled a little bit and said, wow, that's a really difficult question. And I think part of it was the wording, but I think the other part of it was it's difficult to really talk about, in my opinion, religion and churches and how they've handled mental health for many of us. And I was candid and said, look, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the church. I'm disappointed in religious leaders and how they've handled mental health and suicide in the church. I think that it has deterred a fair amount of people from turning to the church. You know, that used to be that many people would go to the church to receive support. And I think that we see that not as much as what it used to be because of how the church has handled mental health issues, particularly suicide. So I'm urging and challenging leaders of the church to have someone like myself come in and be able to talk about and train leaders in how to deal, how to have those difficult conversations, how to be proactive rather than just reactive. Oftentimes we are so reactive that we don't, you know, process what does it mean to be proactive. And I believe our church leaders need to be trained in a way that they're able to sit next to someone who has suicidal thoughts and just process that with them and get the support that they need. So that's kind of how I answered it. I said, you know, I think it's happened both ways. So I think it can be frustrating. What are your thoughts? If you would love to, just share your thoughts. Share what your thoughts are about the church and mental health, and how you have seen positives, how you've seen negatives. What have you seen that are concerns of yours with the church? You know, I believe as a community, it's our job to hold them accountable in some ways, to rise up and meet the needs of their congregation, especially in mental health, right? I think that that's very important. So as always, it's Tuesday night, Ask the Therapist Live, where you have an opportunity to ask me any question about life, religion, marriage, children, parenting, sex, whatever it may be. Do you have a question tonight that I can answer? I'm going to check my social media and see if there is anything going on there. Okay, nothing on Instagram. Nothing on Facebook. All right, we are quiet. We are quiet. Okay, so I am going to give you a shout out. I'm going to give a shout out. So let's post this poll so we can move on to our next one. Publish our results. So we have 80%. 80% of you would be interested in transcripts for Ask the Therapist Live. So Paula, we need to make that a priority to really create those transcripts for Ask the Therapist Live so that they're available for you. So they're available for you to skim through, read through. I think it's nice to skim through, and especially if you're not here for the live and you would like to be able to know what we've discussed, it's a nice summary so you don't have to listen to the whole video, right? So you don't have to listen to the whole video. So 80% of you are interested in this. Very cool. Love it. All right. So one of the questions I did receive this week was about grief and loss. one of the areas of grief and loss, there are stages of grieving that we talked about before, right? One of the areas that most people struggle with long-term is the emotion of yearning, longing for the person who has died, yearning or longing for the person that has died. And this person said to me, a client said to me, will that feeling ever go away? Will that feeling ever go away? And I have to say, in 20 plus years of being a psychotherapist and working in the area of grief and loss, that doesn't go away. That feeling of longing, that feeling of yearning is there long term. What I can say, though, in giving you hope, is although that feeling is still there, the sting isn't quite as difficult. The sting isn't quite as painful, but that longing, that yearning is still there. One of the examples I used is many years ago. I was a young child, 12 years old, 11 years old, I would say, and I don't remember what year. Mom, you might be able to remember. And my grandmother was killed in a car accident. So she died when I was in 6th grade. There are still times that I long to be in her space, to hug her. And that yearning and that longing becomes so intense sometimes that I can actually feel it in the muscles of my arms. They just want to hug her again, right? So unfortunately, that longing and yearning and grieving, all those myriad of emotions you may experience, that's the most difficult one to cope with and tends to be a little less of a sting long term, but still there. So not the greatest of news, but what I can say is it will be less painful each day. Thank you, Mom. 1986. Thank you. It will get less painful as time passes. Life never returns to normal again. It never returns to what it was like. It will always be different. And now it's just a different type of normal. So Paula says, having been involved in the church life for 35 plus years, I'm finally seeing a shift in the church perspective towards mental health. The stigma is slowly lifting. Great, thank you. Yeah, so definitely encouraging to hear that, Paula. Thank you so much. And Jody says, Christy, what are your thoughts about the difference between spirituality and religion? So this is a really good question, and I'm not sure if I can give you the best answer. I can give you the answer in terms of my thoughts for sure, but the technical answer, this is actually probably something Paula would do better answering. When we look at the difference between spirituality, what I think of is spirituality is more universal, global. So I see spirituality as more of a feeling and emotion than I do as a specific doctrine, okay? So just to, and I know you didn't ask Google, you asked me, but just to look at that quickly, spirituality defined, right? Just to look at that. Okay, so being a spiritual person is synonymous with being a person whose highest priority is to be loving to yourself and others. Okay, so to me, it's like this overarching universal feeling to be spiritual. There's not something specific. Where religion, to me, is more specific. So when we look at religion, religion is more of a, like for me, I believe in, I practice Christian, so a religion is the belief and the worship of a personal God, right? That's a particular system of faith. So when I think of religion, I think of a church, an organized church with, certain doctrines and values and a belief system. So to me, someone who may be spiritual from my perspective, there's nothing very specific. It's more of I love everybody, right? And I feel it, and we're all together and communing in one. There isn't specifics. Where religion is when you look at a church and you look at their mission statements, when you look at their beliefs, their values, that you either subscribe to them or you don't. One of those may be that the Holy Spirit is 3 persons in one, or infant baptism versus adult baptism. Each church, each religion has a different idea of what that is. So I hope that answers your question, Jody. I'm more than happy to expand upon that. And I know Paula could answer that really, really good. But to me, that's the difference. To me, spirituality is a feeling. It's universal. Religion is much more core values, more specific. So as a Christian, this is what I believe, and that's my religion. Spirituality, it's more open. Okay, so I hope that helped. So thank you very much for the question. I really appreciate that. So we know, okay, so let's look at our next, how many of you, our next poll. Okay, now I can't see it myself. Okay. Well, I don't see the poll. I hope you do. So the next question was, do you live in the Pittsburgh area? Do you live in the Pittsburgh area? It says it's active, but I don't even see it myself. So hopefully you see it. Do you live in the Pittsburgh area? How many of you are from here? Let's figure this out. How many of you live outside of the Pittsburgh area? That would be fun to know. Who are we drawing? Who's our tribe, right? Spirituality tends to be a non-religious type experience. People seek to reach some higher level of consciousness through means not related to the God of the Bible. Thank you. See, she's wonderful. Thank you, Paula. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Okay. So we are, I hope you all see it. Does anybody see that? Do you live in the Pittsburgh area? It's kind of important if you see it. Let me know if you see it. Okay, so other questions, other things you wanted to ask tonight. Again, Ask the Therapist Live, where you get to ask anything that you want for guidance or just to, you know, give you some direction in life. How did you do with self-care this week? What did you do for yourself? You know, my therapist, yes, I go to therapy, go figure, right? My therapist has asked me a question that I'm totally stuck on. Thank you, Nathaniel. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jody. I appreciate it. Perhaps whenever I publish it, I'll be able to see it. Anyways, my therapist asked me this question that I'm totally stuck on. So I thought perhaps you might be able to answer this question for yourself, right? As I'm thinking about it. What do you do for fun? My therapist said to me, Christy, what do you do for fun? How do you relax? What do you like to do on a regular basis that you really enjoy? And my first answer is always work. New projects. I absolutely love my work. I love being here tonight with you. You know, this is fun to me, right? And she said, no. Outside of work, what do you enjoy that's fun? I'm like absolutely stuck. Like I don't know what I do that's fun. I don't know what I do on a regular basis. Now, shame on me as I preach self-care, right? Now, for me, self-care is taking a walk, it's prayer, it's having quiet time to meditate, it's having my devotional time. You know, I do those things of self-care on a regular basis, sometimes not the best, but I still try. But I didn't think of like fun. What do I do for fun? So I'm still searching for that answer. So what's your answer? What do you do for fun? If your therapist said to you, or your coach, or I said to you, what do you do for fun? So if you're comfortable, type it in the comments. Let me know what you do for fun. Maybe give me some ideas. I need to come up with something fun. I have therapy on Thursday. I have to figure it out. So I get the question all the time. Do you go to therapy yourself? Do you attend therapy yourself? And the answer is absolutely yes. First and foremost, as a professional student of psychology, of counseling, we are encouraged to be in therapy as we listen to so many people's stories and we work through their issues, their heartache, their pain. We're encouraged to be in therapy. It's important. So yes, absolutely. You know, that's always my answer. And second, sometimes in life, it gets a little difficult for me too. Last night at my board meeting, I almost totally lost it. Just like tears. I was so frustrated with technology. I could not get the video to work. And I, obviously, as the president, is in charge of the meeting. We're bouncing around to different platforms, trying to get it to work. I felt so frustrated in that moment. I typed on the screen to the board members, I am so sad, because they couldn't hear me. So I'm typing, I'm like, I am so sad. I thought I was going to cry because I could not get the technology to work. And it was just so frustrating. So it helps me to be able to go into therapy and say, look, sometimes I struggle, even with technology, and I feel really crappy about that. And I need to just work through that to remember that I am enough. I am enough. So if a therapist needs therapy, then each and every one of us can always benefit from therapy as well. We can grow and learn. The stigma around therapy is still there, not as bad as it used to be, but it's still there. So what happens in therapy? When you attend a session of therapy with a very skilled therapist, of course, you're going to do the initial intake where they're asking general questions all about you. They're asking you about who you are, your background, that kind of thing, and ask you what brought you there. Then they're going to ask you your goals. What are your goals in treatment? What do you hope to accomplish? Most people aren't quite sure. They just want to feel better, and that's okay too. And yes, time and again, people cry in therapy. That's what we do. Even men cry in therapy. I always say, if these walls could talk, you would hear the tears and the tears. To me, that's very cathartic. It's important in therapy that we cry. It's important in therapy that we cry to be able to release that tension. It's a safe space for that, right? So there's many benefits, from emotional healing to just gaining insight in who we are, building our self-esteem, learning how to be the best person possible. There are many benefits to therapy that many people may fear, but I can tell you it is one of the best places to be if you're looking to grow and develop into an incredible person. So Suzanne says she enjoys board games and card games as part of self-care and fun. Oh, I love that. Good, good. And Ruth enjoys camping, spending time with her grandchildren, and dates with you. I know, I love spending time with you too, Mama. Your dad. Not that I don't like being with you. Yes. I don't know who Dak is. Dad's out of town. Is that your boyfriend? Yes, Mother, you love having date night with Dad. Absolutely. Our partners are part of our decompression, right? So I see some questions coming in. Let me check this out. All right. So I'm going in to see if there's been any new questions. Okay. All right. Here's one. Hi, Christy. How are you? Thank you for doing Ask the Therapist Live. I really appreciate it. My question to you is, our dog is not doing well, and I'm fearful that we're going to have to put our dog down. How do I even begin to tell my 5-year-old that their dog isn't going to make it? Gosh, that's a tough question, right? How many of us have lost pets? How many of us have gone through that grieving process of a pet? And then to explain it to a small child can be really difficult. I have a great cheat sheet for you, although you can't take the pain away. Mr. Rogers is a rock star. Mr. Rogers has an incredible children's book on many, many topics, but one of them absolutely being the death or loss of a pet. So I always recommend, I used to work with children when I was new as a clinician. I don't any longer, but I always recommend using a book. It gives us a guide to talk to our younger children so we don't talk over them and we don't share too much and overwhelm them, and we make sure we cover all the topics. And thankfully, Mr. Rogers particularly has a ton of books on multiple topics and how to talk to our children. So that's my first recommendation, is to start with a book, sit down and begin to read the book, be able to explain to the child that, yes, you can see our puppy isn't doing well and he's not feeling well. And when we don't feel well, we have to take care of it. We own the responsibility of when our animals or our pets aren't doing well, that we make sure they're in the best place possible and are able to feel no pain, be able to rest, doggy heaven. Explaining it in that way will be helpful. Again, it's still going to be very painful and there's still going to be lots of tears. But the most important point is that you talk about it. Do not hide it. Do not avoid it. You talk about it and make sure the child has an opportunity to say goodbye to the pet. Although painful, it's important, even at 5, to have that closure. And again, Mr. Rogers is a rock star, and he has a great book around that. Paula says, religion is usually centered around a God, again, not the God of the Bible necessarily. Christianity is centered around a person, Jesus. One can be religious, following rules of a denomination or institution without following Jesus. Being involved in spirituality or religion will not provide the concrete anchor found in Jesus. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Paula. And Paula says, and what does she do for fun? Bible study, shooting range with my hubby, spending time with friends, especially you. Oh, thank you. And going to the beach when possible. Yes, very good. Those are all great things that you do for fun. I have to figure mine out. All right, let's publish the results for the Pittsburgh area. And again, I can't see the results. Why? Where did it go? Where did it go? Okay. My polls are totally gone. All right, so what percentage did you guys see for the Pittsburgh area? Why can't I see it? Just when we think we have it all together, right? Okay. Anyways, hopefully you see the results of the Pittsburgh area. This is what's leading up to my shout out. So I have a really cool opportunity for each and every one of you that's in the Pittsburgh area. I don't know how many of you that is. I was hoping to find out through this crazy poll thing, but somehow I've clicked on the wrong thing, and that's okay. So our next question is, do you have a dog? Do you live in the Pittsburgh area? You've already answered that. I have no idea what the answer was, but do you have a dog? Tell me. Everybody vote. Do you have a dog? You all know I have a dog. Dogs are very therapeutic, aren't they? Dogs help us whether we are struggling and have a stressful day, whether we are overwhelmed, or perhaps, we've lost a loved one. Our pets are very important to us. They're very therapeutic. They help us deal with our anxiety. Animals help us deal with our stress. Thank you, Nathaniel. You are an absolute rock star. Thank you so much. So 60% of us are from Pittsburgh. That's awesome. So we're weighing in now. Do you have a dog? And just talking about the therapeutic benefit of having a pet. Even if it's not a dog, perhaps you have a cat or a rat or whatever it may be, but pets are really therapeutic for us, right? So whenever we have our pets, they can help us with anxiety and stress and depression, right? All right, everybody's weighing in. So my shout out for you is those of us who have a dog, there is an incredible event happening in our city. And I want you there, and I want you to say hello to me. How many of you travel out on November 25th? Black Friday, right? How many people are out and about on Black Friday? That is a huge day, a mass exodus out of our homes into retail. Well, I will be tucked away in a cool little place called Gina's Happy Hound. Gina's Happy Hound is this incredible grooming for animals, for dogs, and she is going to have Santa. Yes, Santa is going to be there. And you guessed it, you will have an opportunity with your pup to take a picture with Santa. Is that not the coolest? So mark your calendars for November 25th, Gina's Happy Hound. It is in Allison Park, right outside of Pittsburgh. Paula, if you want to give us the link, give us the address, that would be perfect. I want to see you there at Gina's Happy Hound. Gina is this amazing woman. If you do not know Gina Vale, you need to know her. Not only does she have an incredible grooming business, but she has a heart of gold. Gina is hosting this event, and Gina is donating all proceeds. She is donating all proceeds back to iRise Leadership for suicide prevention and awareness. See, maybe what you don't know about Gina is 2 years ago, she did a fundraiser for us, and she raised the highest amount of money that we had received at that time. It was an incredible fundraiser. So on November 25th, it is $12 per photo with Santa and your dog. We have a fair amount of you that own a dog. So if you don't own a dog, I bet you know somebody else that owns a dog. And you can bring them down to Gina's Happy Hound to have their picture taken for $12 with Santa, and all proceeds are going back to iRise Leadership for Suicide Prevention and Awareness. What a gift. Thank you, Gina, for being incredible. I'm going to have reminders on my Facebook page so you don't forget, as well as additional details. So we have another question. If you have a question, remember it's Ask the Therapist Live, where you get to ask the questions and I answer them for you. All right. So let's publish the results for those who have a dog. Da, da, da. There we go. 43% have dogs and 57% do not. But if we even have half of the yeses show up, oh my gosh, how awesome would that be? Stop by and say hello to me, and maybe I'll bring my pup. I don't know, he's a little crazy. So, oh, it's getting warm in here. All right, so we have another question. As many of you remember, there was a shooting in Pittsburgh last week, and there has been so many emotions around it. It has received national news coverage, and we continue to pray for the families that were affected by the shooting. It has had a ripple effect, as many of you know, and if you've experienced a loss or a tragedy in your own city, there is a ripple effect, whether you knew the people or not. You mourn, you grieve, and we come together as a community to support. Thank you, Paula, for that information. So this question is, I feel like I'm still having an emotional reaction. Okay. I feel like I'm still having an emotional reaction in regards to the shooting in Pittsburgh. I've had what I'm calling an existential crisis, in that I've realized some of my beliefs and actions have been wrong. I've changed political parties. My views on life have changed, and I feel emotionally in turmoil. How do you prevent situations that result in perspective shifts from taking control of your life? What a great question. Let me read that again. I feel like I'm still having an emotional reaction in regards to the shooting in Pittsburgh. I've had what I'm calling an existential crisis, in that I've realized some of my beliefs and actions have been wrong. I've changed political parties. My views on life have changed, and I feel emotionally in turmoil. How do you prevent situations that result in perspective shifts from taking control of your life? So really, really good question. And I'm sure we've all experienced this from time to time, especially as we age, we grow, we have life experiences. There are some experiences that truly just rock us to the core. They cause us to evaluate, who are we? What are our beliefs, both politically and religiously perhaps, or our own personal beliefs? We begin to go inside and evaluate, may even change our beliefs as a result. So for you, this is actually, in my opinion, very positive to have this reaction. My concern would be if there wasn't a reaction. How to keep it from taking control of your life is another story, but give yourself a break, have a little grace. It's too soon. It's too soon to assume that it isn't going to be overwhelming emotionally for you. This was a tragedy within the city. I know you experienced it firsthand in many ways. And so as a result, your length, your time of grieving is going to be longer than perhaps somebody else who may not be part of the city or who may not have experienced it as you did. Each of our own experiences is unique, but I want you to have a little bit of grace. You're still in a short span of time and naturally should be feeling this. And the fact that you took the time to evaluate, how did this affect you? There are things that you perhaps feel that you were doing wrong, or it was wrong in your beliefs. That is life, right? That is how we grow, that willingness to be transparent, to be vulnerable and accountable for what we believe in, to examine that when life happens shows a level of maturity and growth that not many people have. So I applaud you. I applaud you for allowing that core shaking to occur and for you to use it to leverage, use it, that pain to leverage and grow. That's what I challenge everyone to do each and every week is the pain we experience in our life, allow it to grow, right? Leverage your pain to grow into the best person that you can be. You know, perhaps this challenged your beliefs in religion or core values or in your community. Don't run from that. Sit in it, examine it. Now, when you say not take over and control your life, as a clinician, what I hear is there still may be some residual anxiety, obsessive thinking, perhaps, unable to control the thoughts, levels of depression that are higher than what you're used to. Perhaps that's what you're referring to. That's what I hear as a clinician. So when there is a tragedy and we are struggling with obsessive thinking, anxiety, post-trauma experiences, dreams, whatever it may be, we want to pay close attention to that. We want to make sure that we're proactive in calling it out and managing it. So how can you manage it? If you feel it's necessary, go speak with a professional. Go speak with this professional in counseling to talk about the post-trauma that you're experiencing as this tragedy, as you were part of this tragedy. Second, don't fear what you're experiencing and talk about it. The more you talk about it and look for ways for support, the healthier you will be and the sooner you will feel better. Again, we each have our own journey. If it's anxiety, if it's obsessive thinking, then things like prayer, meditation, yoga, being able to find grounding exercises. If you're getting flashbacks, again, grounding exercises to help you. Deep sadness, allow yourself to cry when it's appropriate. Journal, write letters that you perhaps don't send. Allow your brain to experience it and work through it. It's going to take time. A normal amount of time after a tragedy can be 6 months to a year to begin to really see major healing. That's not to say that you'll continue to feel better. Absolutely. And if you're not, then you definitely need to seek support. But really, as a clinician, we check in at about 6 months and say, okay, how are we doing? Are you able to go to work? Are you able to still shower and eat and you're not losing weight? These are the things we're looking for. But my friend, it's a great question. You're not alone. The entire city and the people around you are experiencing many of the similar things, many of the same things that you're experiencing, that emotional turmoil that rocks you to the core, that causes you to evaluate, who am I and what am I doing? I applaud you for taking the time to do that, right? To not run from those feelings. If you continue to have a concern, please seek professional help, support, so that you can work through it and feel more in control. So I hope that was helpful for you. All right, what's our next question? I have one more question for you, and we are almost at our hour. So here's our next question. This is an easy one, and I'm just curious. So as a clinician, I have to ask you, when you look at the last 7 days, did you have mostly sad days or mostly happy days? Go ahead and select one, and then I'll publish the results. We may have a bit skewed because of the tragedies in our city, right? It may skew our results here in Pittsburgh. Maybe not, but go ahead and weigh in. Let me know, how have you felt this last week? Did you have more happy days or sad days? As you're thinking about it, when you had your sad day, what did you do to pick yourself up? When you're having a tough day, you wake up and you feel heavy, sad, depressed, like you don't want to get out of bed. What do you do? What can you do? These are some questions that are really important for you to be healthy. As I shared today on Dave Malarkey's show, someone doesn't wake up and decide they want to die by suicide. It's the lack of self-care, anxiety, depression, poor coping mechanisms, inability to cope with life stressors. All of these symptoms lead to suicidal thoughts or an attempt. It's important that if you're having more sad days, that you seek support, but also if you're having sad days, knowing what to do. Some of the quick things that you can do if you're having a sad day and you wake up sad is turn on positive music. Music influences us greatly, all the way to the core. For me, if I'm having a rough day or I wake up and I feel sad, I start right away with praise and worship music or motivational speakers on YouTube. I pick some of the great motivational speakers that I enjoy and I listen to them as I get ready in the morning, or I listen to praise and worship music. You would be surprised how just listening, the energy it takes just to hit a button, to just listen, how it begins to move the spirit. Once you take that first step, you can do the next. And you begin to think, just get out of bed, just shower, just brush my teeth. One thing at a time leads to the next. And before you know it, your mood at least has shifted. So you're not as down that you couldn't get out of bed, but you're up and becoming more productive. So then fueling your body is that next step. What we do know is high protein diets feed the brain. When we feed the brain, we have clarity, higher levels of energy, the ability to truly plan what we want to do for the day without feeling overwhelmed or burdened. So fueling the body is really important. Drinking plenty of water. These things sound common sense, but when I've had a difficult day, the last thing I want to do is get out of bed. And once I'm out of bed, the last thing I want to do is eat. But I do know if I force myself, for me, that high protein tends to be a protein shake. I don't like to eat in the morning, but I'm good with a protein shake. That's easy for me. I'm happy to drink my calories, quite frankly. I don't need to necessarily eat, but I know I have to have that, right? And then throughout your day, the positive reinforcement in your thoughts, reaching out to people who love and care for you, connecting with people is really important. It's another way if you're having a difficult day, making sure that you reach out, right? Making sure that if you do take medication, that you are taking all your medication, taking your vitamins, being very compliant to your treatment plan if you have one. Those are simple steps that you can begin to take to feel better on days that are sad. Another one of my favorites is gratitude. When you're able to sit in a place of gratitude, and it may sound cliche, but think about all the things you're grateful for, even if it's just 2 or 3. In that moment when you're thinking about them, you can't be sad. You can't be sad. The other one we did last time, remember, was laugh therapy. You just sit up in bed and start laughing. It's a bit creepy, but it sends those endorphins right to the brain, those happy endorphins, and you begin to feel better. So I am happy to report, let me publish these results. I am happy to report that the majority of us are happy and had a happy week, had a good week. That's great. Now, obviously, it weighs heavy on me, and I feel sad that 40% of you had more sad days than you did happy days. I'm going to challenge you this week. I listed just a few things that you can do to care for yourself. I listed a few things that you can do to lift your mood. I challenge you to do them. Create a playlist of joy, whether it's praise and worship music or positive music that brings and lifts you up, right? Motivational videos, reaching out to a friend, texting, calling somebody, eating high protein meals. If you're able to exercise, exercise is great. Laugh therapy, praise and worship, prayer. These are all great things. So I challenge you, take 1 or 2 of those things this week on your sad day and watch how you can shift your mood. Because believe it or not, you're in control of your thoughts. They may be automatic at first, but you have the ability to shift them. Other questions today as we are at our hour, few minutes past our hour. Do you have any questions? I'll tell you, this has been an incredible week. My emotions have been up and down. I can certainly share that with you, and I'm sure yours has too. definitely more happy days than sad days. Some weeks it's just not like that for me either. So I appreciate your honesty in what you're sharing. And I appreciate you being here tonight. So I'm going to check social media one more time, make sure there's no more questions. If you have a last minute question, let me know. Let me know what you thought of the polls. I thought the polls were fun. In honor of voting today, we voted several times ourselves. We got to know our tribe a little bit better, right? We got to know our tribe just a little bit better by these simple polls. Let me check social media. Okay. All right, so here we have another question. I just love all these questions. You guys are absolutely rock stars. I know sometimes I overuse that, but I just love being in your space. I love getting the questions. I love knowing where your hearts are. So I appreciate you being here and giving up your evening to spend time with me and spend time with these incredible people. Okay, so I've asked questions before regarding my relationship with my birth mother and my biological siblings. I've noticed feelings of sadness and hurt regarding the situations that occurred many months ago. I thought I had processed these and moved on in my life. Is it normal for resentment regarding painful relationships to resurface without warning when no new situations have occurred? So this person has asked questions before regarding their relationship with their birth mother and biological siblings. And he states, I've noticed feelings of sadness and hurt regarding the situations that occurred many months ago. And he thought that he had processed these and moved on. Is it normal for resentment regarding painful relationships to resurface without warning with no new situations have occurred? Absolutely. Yes, it's absolutely normal. Whenever there's been a painful relationship and ties have been severed because of trauma that's occurred in the relationship, it is absolutely normal that at times those painful feelings are going to resurface. And perhaps you don't consciously or not aware, perhaps you're not consciously aware of something triggering it, but subconsciously something's going on that may have triggered it without warning, without you even knowing. It could be just walking in the grocery store and subconsciously there is an item that reminds you of mom or your siblings, and that's enough to trigger the thought. Coming closer to holidays, it will subtly as well trigger memories, thoughts of past trauma. So this is very normal. As long as these relationships are disconnected or there's pain in those relationships, it may surface from time to time. Now, what's important is what do you do when it does resurface? Now that I've established that following trauma, even though you think you may have processed it, it still comes up occasionally. That's normal. So when it happens, what do you do? So what do you do? The first thing I want you to do is I don't want you to associate any shame or guilt around it. Be okay with it. Although it's painful, validate your pain. Be able to say to yourself, okay, this is going to happen. Time to time, memories are going to pop up from the past trauma. Even though I think that I was good with it, even though I thought I was good with it, things are going to pop up. Validate it. So that's first and foremost, validate it. Second, begin to process at a different level. How did you process before? Did you process through talking, just thinking about it? Let's pick another mode of processing so perhaps you're a little closer to healing. That can be writing a letter to them that you never send, or just writing a random journal about it to process those feelings that you keep or you shred. Perhaps it's art in some ways. Many of you saw I went live in Saxonburg this past weekend at the Three Rivers Art Glass Center. It's right here in Pittsburgh, really cool. But I talked about how therapeutic it is to work with glass and heat glass as part of trauma. So perhaps art, processing it through art. Take it to that next step whenever you have a memory or something triggers, right? Take it to that step of processing and then begin to move forward. So distraction, moving into a new activity, listening to music, whatever you do, I don't want you to sit in the pain for a long period of time where it causes sadness or depression. I want you to keep moving through that process. Does that make sense? So yeah, absolutely normal. No worries. Unfortunately, this is true with any type of trauma. And when it does, it's about what we do. So any other questions? All right. So every single week when we're here, I read from this book. My dear, dear friend Jody gave this book to me as a gift, and she even folded back pages that she felt were special, which is really, really awesome. And we have grown to love this book as a tribe, right? So we are nearing the end, and why don't we pick a quote? All right. This one's a little long, but I like it. Okay. So if someone is being unkind or petty or jealous or distant or weird, you don't have to take it in. You don't have to turn it into a big psychodrama about your worth. That behavior so often is not even about you. It's about the person who's being unkind or petty or jealous or distant or weird. If this were summed up on a bumper sticker, it would say, "Don't own other people's crap. The world would be a better place if we all did that." Let me read it one more time. If someone is being unkind or petty or jealous or distant or weird, you don't have to take it in. You don't have to turn it into a big psychodrama about your worth. That behavior so often is not even about you. It's about the person who's being unkind or petty or jealous or distant or weird. If this were summed up on a bumper sticker, it would read, "Don't own other people's crap. The world would be a better place if we all did that." How often do we absorb other people's negative energy, their issues, whatever's going on in their life, and allow it to affect us? Learning how to separate from that, learning that it's not about you, it's not personal, creating some emotional distance, that you're not responsible for them, that it is their own crap, really will help us long term, right? So again, Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ask the Therapist Live, where you have an opportunity to ask any question, anything that you want. Please make sure you invite your friends next Tuesday. And be sure that you share this out and let others know that we have this resource. I look forward to seeing you next week. And remember to mark your calendars for November 25th for Gina's Happy Hound, and bring your pooch so you can take a picture with Santa. For $12, all proceeds go back to iRise Leadership. And we are creating amazing resources for people in the community and professionally speaking all over the globe, getting the word out. So please be a part of Gina's Happy Hound. And if you know anybody that is in need of a professional speaker, have them call me. I would love to talk to them about suicide prevention and awareness so we can really stamp out that stigma. As always, I love you. I love each and every one of you. I don't even have to know you personally to love you. Why is that? Because you're human. You're a person. You are created beautifully. You have the opportunity to light up this world with love, with joy, with purpose, with passion, and you choose to be here tonight as a tribe, sitting in each other's space. I adore and love each and every one of you. If you are struggling, feeling sad or lonely, feel as if you just can't go on any longer, remember, I am right here for you. We are right here for you. You are never alone. God has an amazing plan for you. If you ever question that, reach out to us. Many of us here have submitted to God's will. We have given our lives and surrendered to Him. To be blessed multiplies over and over again. So I love each and every one of you, right? Thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a blessing. And as always, make sure you take care of yourself, and I will see you next Tuesday for Ask the Therapist Live, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have an amazing week.